Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today with me is Kathie Patterson, who's the Chief Human Resource Officer of Ally Financial Services. Kathie, welcome. And can you tell us a little bit about what Ally does for folks who don't know about it?
Great. Thank you, Dr. Gibb, for inviting me here today. Yes, Kathie Patterson, responsible for human resources at Ally Financial. And for those that aren't familiar with Ally, Ally is one of the first online financial service providers. So we provide checking and savings deposit support, as well as one of the largest financial lenders. We were formerly GMAC. And for those that aren't familiar with Ally, we've actually been around for over 100 years. So quite a legacy. I like to refer to us as a startup with scale on many fronts.
I like that. Now, Ally has been doing some innovative work in the questions of retention, especially thinking about hybrid work and remote work. So can you tell me how you approach the question of retention and how it intersects with hybrid work and remote work?
Yes, I am. So I think the one thing I'd back up is hybrid has probably been one piece of the employee value proposition. And when we start thinking about retention for our employee base, I think there's a real deep, clear understanding from the full senior leadership team that our competitive advantage is our talent base. And the more and more we can be in tune with our talent base in terms of what they need to be successful, puts us in a position of success. So like many companies going through the pandemic, it provided an amazing experiment to learn more in terms of what employees needed. And I think coming through that experience, we learned that many teammates really enjoyed sort of having the flexibility and the autonomy to sort of pick their work schedule. And so it's been an evolution, one big journey, if you will, in terms of the way in which we've designed our work schedules to make sure that we're striking the right balance between employee needs and company needs. And so I'm happy to just sort of share, but I think it started with a little bit more of that philosophical view of, so much changed as a result of the pandemic. We recognize the value of our talent base, and we needed to be in tune with that. We had to listen and shape our employment practices to make sure that we were striking that right balance between what the employees needed and what the organization needed in terms of striking. And, we're still figuring it out, if you will. It's the one large experiment. And I think entering with that mindset for our employees has also sort of shaped the expectation. Hey, we're figuring this out as we go.
So focusing on flexibility and your talent base as key, and to make sure that you have that retention component. Now, tell me a little bit more about how Ally does hybrid work. I've helped 23 companies by now, including some financial service firms, transition to figuring out hybrid work and remote work. And I know each of them has a somewhat different approach and we can talk about the variety of approaches. So I'm curious to learn a little bit more about what Ally does.
I think there's a few things that we did that were sort of the core tenets or principles of our hybrid schedule. First and foremost, we recognize that one size does not fit all. Each role sort of demands maybe a little bit of a different set of expectations and requirements. And so first and foremost was a commitment to flexibility, but consistency of schedule. So we understand life is sloppy. We understand that there's going to be days in which life occurs and you might need to take some time off because of a delivery. But what we're looking for is consistency of schedule and making sure that, there's clear expectations as it relates to that schedule. And we recognize that one size doesn't fit all. So we've really pushed that decision-making to the local level and making sure that that leader is setting clear expectations. There's some roles that we need employees in the office 5 days a week. There's some roles, and I'll use an example like compensation. You need to know your command performance. If it's comp planning, I need everyone in here 5 days a week during that cycle. So really
Yeah.
helping and training our leaders of how to set clear expectations based upon the work of their groups and communicating that to the team. And then, also is being really intentional around inclusion and collaboration. So we have teammates that work at multiple sites, some are that are on Zoom. So how are we making sure that we're continuing to build on that inclusive environment and having leaders create events that forces a degree of collaboration? So those were sort of the core principles of what we drove. But I think the biggest part I'd highlight is we really focused at a local level. But we were clear with all the teammates that we've brought on, we were not moving to a work from home situation. So never once at any point did we say we're moving to 100% work from home. There is an expectation that we're better when we're together. And when you look at the fact that we brought in probably close to 2,000 new teammates, they needed support. So if you were someone that was more tenured or more seasoned, you knew how to work from home, right? You knew how to maintain the relationship. But for new talent coming into the organization and how to navigate, they needed that level of support. And I believe that up front, in addition to sort of focusing on those core principles around the hybrid, setting the stage for why it was important that we came together, I think helped us implement a hybrid schedule that worked for the organization and the employee.
That's very wise to push decision-making down the chain of command. I definitely found that the clients that I helped, that focusing on the teams and helping make sure that the teams make the decisions together at the local level is what enables buy-in and engagement. And then all the team members are responsible to each other. And there's kind of this peer approach to, hey, we're coming to the office. Here's why, here's how, and here's why we need to do it this way. That's been very helpful. So I'm glad that you're doing that same. Now, I'm curious to talk about the new folks that you brought on. It's definitely been a challenge for some of my clients to onboard people in kind of a hybrid setting, remote setting. So what we've been doing and what I've found to be quite effective is to set up mentoring, specifically mentoring that's going to be fit for people who are coming in recently. Because, of course, senior folks, like you mentioned, they're pretty comfortable working from home, most of them, not all of them, but they're experienced, they already have their connections, they know how to do it. But junior people, they're coming in, they don't have the connections across the company, they don't know how to work, even do their work. So you need that on-the-job training, you need that professional development, sometimes leadership development, and you need them to build networks across the company. So what I found is that it really helps when you develop mentoring relationships, both one-on-one mentoring relationships and group mentoring relationships, where you have a senior staff member taking out several junior staff members to lunch, or co-working by them together at a site where there's one senior staff member, maybe 4 or 5 junior staff members, having that mentoring relationship, and the senior staff member can answer the questions, check in on how they're doing. So having a lot of mentoring has been really helpful, we found, for onboarding junior team members, getting them those networks of connection across the company. What have you found worked for your junior team members?
Well, I would completely agree around the mentoring. I think we've been extremely intentional around collaboration and bringing in cohort groups. So, when we bring in our interns and our early talent, we bring them together as a cohort group. And there's a common learning platform and experience that I think starts to build a degree of connectivity with that population. We have also done happy hours, luncheons, large events that the CEO, with the CEO coming on to sort of create engagement. But, I think initially, to your point, it's really about establishing intentional collaborations for the team. So a mentor can help an individual maybe navigate their career, but a mentor might not always be available to say, who do you need to call in procurement to get this form done, right? And so we've tried to really look at what we can do to create digital networks, platforms that are easy access tools for some teammates to learn. But truly, the majority of it has been either a buddy system or it's making sure that the team's coming together on a routine basis. And relationships are forming so that individual, if they are working from home, they know who to Zoom, right?
Mhm.
Who to get the answer.
Yeah.
So it goes back to, making sure that we're establishing that network early on.
Mhm.
The other that I would highlight, and I'm sure you've probably seen from your research, is many of our early talent, they want to come in the office.
Yeah.
They want that sort of,
Mhm.
connectivity. They want to be able to see their peers. And if anything, if there was a large push for a period of time there of like, I want to come in, but I want to see more people beyond just the three
Sure.
people that I know I hired with.
Yeah.
Um, and I really do believe that, as I refer to it as an experiment, but as more people started to come in and people started to feel more comfortable, yeah, you start to see more people come into the office.
Mhm.
You started to see, and so we even did things like, promoting things on our website of a teammates having fun, sort of
Mhm.
demonstrating of what it means to sort of come back in. But it's been a journey.
Mhm.
I'll say that much, and I think we're all wiser on the other end. But it's been a journey from um, thinking about that was just March of 2020 when we sent everybody home.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. I want to get to that point about the people coming in, not seeing anyone else. Yeah, that's definitely been an issue for some of my clients. What we found helpful is to do social events that create an anchor, where people can come in at a certain time and know that other people are there at that time because there's a lunch hour that's what the company would sponsor, or cookie hour kind of at 3 p.m., so that people would have others that they know are there rather than just working in an empty office where there are only a few other people. But then when you have a social event, everyone comes together to that social event and they can have a time to interact. So I found that to be useful, and that has been definitely a good activity. And then the other thing would be, if you know your team is coming in, so that's kind of where the decision making is very helpful, then you're not really going to be isolated when you come in, because okay, all of your team members are going to be coming in as well. Curious what your thoughts are on those.
I completely agree. So it's about being extremely intentional around the collaboration and communicating that in advance. It's amazing that when you feed people, they do come in. So big luncheon and hit your occupancy level. But completely agree in terms of making sure that you know when you're coming in, if you're coming in to collaborate, it's hard to collaborate if it's just you and somebody else that might have ad hocly sort of showed up that day. And so that in and of itself also drives the reason for why pushing it to a local level to the work team is such a critical decision, because it allows leaders to coordinate those activities around the work, around the time, the key events that they know, deliverables, that also affords for learning to occur in real time.
Now, I want to think about other financial service companies. So we had very prominent financial service companies, JP Morgan and so on, trying to get all of their staff in the office for 5 days a week, and really rejecting the flexibility of a more flexible hybrid model. I'm curious what your take is on why they do so. Why do some large JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and so on, why do some large financial service companies have such a um, antipathic perspective on hybrid work?
I, I don't know. I mean, every culture is different, right? Every culture,
Mhm.
every leadership team has a different point of view, a different sort of secret sauce for how they navigate their organization. I think, I want to be clear. We do have some work that does require 5 days a week in the
Sure.
office,
Yeah.
so it's a little bit more of, I think we just didn't swing the pendulum one way or another. We
Mhm.
never saw a productivity gap. That was never really the issue. And when we did start to see concerns, those were addressed sort of more by the outliers and one off. But I
Mhm.
am I would just say that I think our leadership team probably has just a different view of what our secret sauce is,
Mhm.
um, to navigate our workforce. And we're also, mid-size, so we might have a little bit more flexibility to be more nimble on that side. So I wish I could give you a little bit more insight, but I don't want to hypothesize on that one.
Oh, I mean, there are other companies like Citigroup that are quite a bit more, or UBS, that are large companies that are much more aligned with what Ally is doing, much more flexible, not like Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan. So large companies clearly can be nimble as well in this arena. Now, what are your thoughts as we wrap up about the future of hybrid work and remote work and the question of retention at Ally going forward?
I don't see hybrid work going away. I mean, I do believe that employees, regardless of the generation, appreciate having the flexibility. And I think at the core, Dr. Gleb, it's about the autonomy. It's about life is so integrated. You know, it's not like the way in which my dad could leave work and just put the bag phone away or just pull into the garage and there is such a divide. I mean, work is integrated. You know, I'm looking at, my emails all, throughout the day, later in the evening. And so the boundaries aren't as clear. And I think we're being a little naive if we think, we're asking that of teammates that, they're going to 9 to 5, they shut their personal life down. And so I think hybrid's going to stay. I think that's a term that I don't think has a consistent definition for what it means. Some people mean it's 3, 2, what have you. Some mean it's flexibility, but I have no doubt that as we think about our workforce moving forward, as long as there's such a clear sort of, there's not the distinction of boundaries, I don't know how we can't be flexible on our side as an employer. And so I don't see it necessarily going to the wayside. I think you'll continue to see. But I think the key is flexibility. I don't think you're going to see maybe as much of the 4-day work week or large shifts like that in the United States. I don't anticipate that large of a swing in terms of really completely altering the work schedule. But I think flexibility will be more.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think flexibility is much more important to most people than something like a 4-day work week.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. This has been very helpful, Kathie.
So it was a pleasure. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing how the piece turns out.
And thank you to the audience for checking out another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and please make sure to leave a review wherever you check this out. It really helps others discover the show and helps us improve the show. All right, everyone. I'll hope to see you in the next episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. In the meantime, the wisest and most profitable decisions to you, my friends.